Zoo games, allowing you to build the zoo of your dreams without having to worry about pesky things like ethics, morals or realism. It's not the biggest subgenre out there, but it still has its fair amount of entries beloved by fans. Among these, however, one reigns supreme, Zoo Tycoon. The first of its kind and still one of the best, barring some slightly outdated mechanics, this game was a core part of many people's childhoods, including mine. Now there's many elements and systems that make up a zoo game, but the most important one is of course the animals you can adopt. Including all expansions, the original Zoo Tycoon has a total of 120 species. That's a lot of animals, but just having big numbers doesn't mean something is good. You actually need to have interesting options. So today I want to ask, how good was the animal selection in the original Zoo Tycoon? Are there any notable absences or weird choices? Time to rate the zoo roster. This video is part of ZooTyCon 2025. Be sure to check out everyone else who's participating in this event. The base game of Zoo Tycoon 1 comes with 45 animal species, plus 2 secret unlockable ones. Dinosaur Digs would add 20 extinct species, plus another secret one. Then Marine Mania added 23 marine species, plus once again one secret animal. Various additional bonus downloads would give you 28 further species, bringing the total amount to 120. There are 3 metrics that I will use to evaluate the selection of animals: geography, biomes, and species. Geography is a simple one. Try to have an equal amount of animals from each continent. Similarly, you want an equal amount of animals for each biome. This sounds straightforward, but there are some complications that we'll get to later. Still, these two are at least easy to measure and quantify. Then there's the actual species. That one's a bit tricky, so we'll save it for last. So, first up, geography. Starting with just the base game, there's a bit of an Africa bias going on with 22 species. That's almost half the roster. Now this does make sense, since Africa is the continent with the most surviving megafauna and thus the most iconic animals. However, while the presence of an Africa bias is expected, the fact that it's this drastic is kind of an issue. Asia and North America both come in at 9 species, which is decent. What isn't decent are the others. Antarctica only having 1 species is acceptable, can't really do much about that, but Australia also only has 1 species, while both Europe and South America only have 2 each. Mind you, one of the 2 European species is the goddamn unicorn. Things don't really get better with the special download animals. While the difference between Africa, Asia and North America gets a bit evened out, we only get a single new South American species, and the rest get nothing. I do want to note that while the Yeti is an Asian creature, the game lists it as being from the Arctic, so I counted it as a North American species. I also didn't include the prehistoric download animals. Looking at Dinosaur Digs, instead of an Africa bias we have a North America bias. Once again, this makes sense, as the US kinda dominated paleontology for a while, and so many of the most iconic dinosaurs are from North America. Barring that notable imbalance, the distribution is a bit better than the base game. There is a complete lack of Australian and Antarctic dinosaurs, though to be fair, most of those were discovered after the game came out. Bringing this all together, Africa, Asia and North America are basically equal, while the other 4 remain fighting over scraps. Now Europe having so few is understandable, as most European wildlife isn't exactly considered to be the most exciting. That said, they are still common within zoos, as we'll see later, but both Australia and South America are a treasure trove of interesting animals, so having barely any in the game feels like a huge missed opportunity. Next up, we'll look at biomes. Zoo Tycoon 1 has 9 biomes: savanna, grassland, deciduous forest, coniferous forest, rainforest, highland, tundra, desert and aquatic. Starting once again with the base game, we get this distribution. Savanna is very much an outlier, a consequence of the aforementioned Africa bias. The same can be said for rainforest, though that one makes sense globally. The rest are at similar levels. though I'm surprised Highland comes in at 3rd place. I do feel like the split into deciduous and coniferous can be a bit arbitrary. Also, grassland only having a single species is just very odd. With the download animals, all biomes get a boost, except desert and aquatic. Now we'll get back to the latter, but desert feels like a major oversight. That said, even the biomes that did get more aren't made equal. While rainforest gets 6 new species, grassland and coniferous forest both only get 1, which is especially underwhelming for grassland. Dinosaur Digs is pretty infamous for the questionable choices in biomes. It kinda just assigns them randomly. Now applying modern biomes to Mesozoic animals is pretty tricky, so some of that can be forgiven. Still, why are the velociraptors not in the desert? Why is Spinosaurus not aquatic? And why is Meolania in the tundra? There's also a complete lack of highland or desert animals. Highland I get, you don't really hear much about alpine dinosaurs, but there's plenty of desert species, you know, like Velociraptor. Barring these 2 factors though, the actual distribution is pretty equal. Coniferous forest is kind of an outlier, but that one makes sense given how conifers are a lot older than deciduous trees. All combined, the biome distribution is not that bad, with the 2 main outliers being easily justified. The desert only having 2 animals, both of them being base game, is almost a crime. You probably noticed I left out Marine Mania. That's because assigning marine animals to continents and biomes doesn't really work. I could add ocean as a continent and there is the aquatic biome, but it wouldn't really do much besides creating a massive imbalance. This is why I didn't mind aquatic not getting any additions via downloads. Marine Mania already adds plenty. Well, that was a short video. Oh wait, we still need to cover which species actually got in. Surely that won't take too long, right? Oh boy. Okay, first up, what are the essential zoo animals? You know, the ones every zoo needs to have? That's a very subjective question, and every person will give you a slightly different list based on their preferences. There's also geography to consider, as some animals are more common in certain parts of the world, usually their region of origin, as they can be sourced locally, if you will. To judge this properly, we're gonna need some hard data. Luckily, there's Zootierliste, a German website that tracks which species are kept in which zoos around the world, giving us some concrete info. Obviously the site isn't perfect, so some data might be missing or incorrect. Then there's the way it handles subspecies as distinct entries on the list, which makes some numbers a bit misleading. The data is also constantly updating, so the exact numbers may have already changed while making this video. Also, the site doesn't track invertebrates, but it's the best resource for this I found and a real godsend. So, according to Zootierliste, the top 5 most common zoo animals are: at number 5, the domestic rabbit; at number 4, the European fallow deer; number 3, the emu; at number 2, the West African dwarf goat; and the number 1 zoo animal, the blue peafowl. Not exactly what you expected, is it? The reality is that most zoos are smaller in scope, like petting zoos, and can't afford the more exotic animals. Some of those probably shouldn't be kept in zoos to begin with, but that's a different story. This is why zoo games are great. No need to worry about the actual ethics behind zoos. With that established, for the remainder of this video I'll be going through the animal kingdom taxa by taxa to compare the animals of Zoo Tycoon with how common they are in real zoos. If a species is within the top 1000, I'll consider it common. If it's within the top 100, I'll consider it super common. Some caveats before we start though. Zoo Tycoon doesn't feature any domestic species, instead opting for petting zoo building, so while they dominate the upper ranks, they are off the table. There's also no flying animals, meaning most birds are also out. Lastly, there seems to be a lower size limit. For the most part, anything smaller than a large dog just didn't make the cut. Let's start with mammals, specifically the odd-toed ungulates. I asked some friends and family members what they thought the most common zoo animal was. Pretty much everyone answered zebra, which fair enough, they are pretty iconic and super common in real zoos. Primarily the plains zebra, which is also the one we found in Zoo Tycoon. That said, Grevy's zebra is also common. When it comes to other equids, the selection gets a bit sparse due to the aforementioned lack of domestic animals. We did get the Przewalski's horse as part of of the Endangered Species pack, which makes sense as it is one of the most notable examples of successfully bringing back a species that was extinct in the wild. No donkeys though, except for in the DS version, which included 2 brand new animals, one of them being the onager. Next we got rhinos. Zoo Tycoon gives us the black rhino, even though the white rhino is the more common one in zoos, and the downloads added in the Javan rhino. That one's a weird choice, as it isn't really kept in zoos. The Indian rhino would be the more obvious choice, being the second most common rhino species in captivity. That said, the Javan rhino was specifically part of the Endangered Species pack, and it is critically endangered, so it works in that regard. Either way, I'm glad we got both an African and an Asian species. The final odd-toed ungulate are the tapirs. While the base game features no tapirs, the downloads added the Malayan tapir. It is certainly the more visually interesting species and also more common in Asian zoos. That said, the South American tapir is more common in general and would have boosted the South American roster, but in the end either one is fine. On to the even-toed ungulates, starting with camels. Base game gives us the dromedary. While the Bactrian camel is actually more common in real zoos, the dromedary isn't that far behind. Plus it is by far the most iconic desert animal and therefore an obvious choice. Downloads later added the llama, which is not just an iconic South American species, but also ranks super high on the list. It really should have been base game, but at least we got it eventually. The alpaca actually ranks even higher, but I suppose that one falls too far into petting zoo territory. Next up are pigs. The Vietnamese potbelly is a very common petting zoo animal, and wild boars are actually pretty common throughout European zoos. Instead, Zoo Tycoon gives us the common warthog, which I guess is also common by my definition. Still, the wild boar would have been great to get some more Europe rep. Then we got hippos, also common, not much else to say here. Moving on to giraffes, which just barely miss out on the top 100. Or do they? This is where Zootierliste splitting up subspecies becomes an issue. Giraffe taxonomy is also just kind of a mess, having 3, 4 or 8 species depending on who you ask. That said, Zoo Tycoon released before they were split, so we just got unspecified giraffe. We also got the okapi, another iconic and common animal. Deer are super common in zoos around the world, with the European fallow deer even making it into the top 5, which makes it a bit odd that the only deer we get in the base game is the moose. The reindeer also got added later via downloads. That one is by far more common in real zoos, though I think they only added it because they already had the model from Santa's sleigh. Next up is cattle, where we got bison and buffalo. The American bison is common in zoos and the most iconic North American animal around, as well as the only grassland animal in the base game. On the buffalo side, water buffalo are way more common, and yet Zoo Tycoon gave us the Cape buffalo. The Africa bias strikes again. This is also where we get the second DS exclusive species in the coupre, an animal that might actually be extinct. After that we got goats. Now the number 2 spot is a goat, but it's a domestic species, so no luck. We do get 3 goats though in the ibex, the markhor and the bighorn sheep, filling out the highlands roster. The ibex is definitely the most important one of these, since it's the only European animal we get, besides the unicorn, but like come on. Through downloads we later got the Japanese serow, which might just be the deepest cut in the game. There was a whole pack of Japanese decorations and I guess they needed an animal to go along with it. I would have picked the tanuki, but considering this might be the only place people ever hear of the serow, I think it was a good choice. The last big group of ungulates are antelopes and gazelles, of which Zoo Tycoon has 6. Thompson's gazelle, wildebeest and gemsbok come with the base game, and via downloads we get blackbuck, bongo and sable antelope. Now I always assumed the Thompson's gazelle was super common in zoos. It's the most iconic one after all. Turns out that it doesn't even make the top 1000. Looking up the actually most common antelopes in zoos, the top 5 spots are the common eland, the blackbuck, the scimitar oryx, the nilgai and the addax. Gemsbok, bongo, sable antelope and wildebeest also make it into the top 1000. Alright, enough ungulates. Moving on to carnivores. Starting on the cat side, Zoo Tycoon has a lot of cats. Maybe too many. It does mean all the important ones are covered. Lion, tiger, jaguar, leopards, cheetah, cougar. No lynx though. That could have been an additional European species. Somewhat awkwardly, black leopards are classified as their own species, which they aren't, but the game didn't have a system to allow for color morphs, so we'll have to live with this solution. We also got 3 tigers. For the most part, Zoo Tycoon doesn't bother with subspecies. Tigers are one of the few exceptions, giving us both Bengal and Siberian tigers. The reasoning for this was probably to be able to cover multiple biomes. That said, while Bengal and Siberian were separate subspecies when the game was released, they have since been downgraded to populations of the same subspecies. And then we also got the white Bengal tiger, which is a separate species for the same reason as the black leopard is. Considering the lack of big hitters among the top ranks, I'm actually surprised how high lions and tigers are on the list. As for cat relatives, we get the spotted hyena, which is the most common hyena in zoos, and nothing else. Now most cat relatives are rather obscure, but there is one huge omission, and that is the meerkat. The meerkat is not only an iconic animal, but also ranks within the top 10 most common zoo animals. Here's an entire video on why meerkats are in basically every zoo. Unfortunately, one of the reasons for that is their small size, which is presumably why they aren't in the game. On the dog side of things, we got our second case of subspecies in the wolf, as we get both the generic grey wolf and the Arctic wolf. Once again, I think this was done to cover multiple biomes. Then, similarly to the Serow, there was a Mexican themed download pack, and as the accompanying animal, they chose the Mexican grey wolf. Bit of an odd choice. We sadly get no foxes despite their popularity, once again probably size related, but we do get the African wild dog, which are also common. Then we got bears, brown bear, polar bear, both types of black bear, and the giant panda. This is also where we find the most bizarre animal in all of Zoo Tycoon, that being Magnet. Magnet was a real polar bear that lived at the Baltimore Zoo. Microsoft held a promotional contest back in the day where real zoos could submit their animals and the winner would be put in the game, the winner being Magnet. Kinda cool, but also kinda weird, especially if you don't read the animal descriptions. While giant pandas are in the game, red pandas aren't. Most likely another size issue, but maybe red pandas also just weren't as popular back then. Another notable absence are raccoons and coatis. While not the biggest or flashiest animals, they rank pretty high on the list. There also aren't any mustelids, again probably because of their size, except we did get sea otters in Marine Mania, which I'm pretty sure are in fact the smallest animal in the game. I guess otters were just too iconic of an aquarium animal to leave out. Speaking of aquariums, base game gave us the California sea lion, the most common seal in zoos by a long shot. Marine Mania then gave us both walrus and elephant seal. Not exactly common zoo animals, but they certainly look very unique and striking. That wraps things up for carnivores. Next up are primates. This is another case of having no small animals causing a major omission, because the ring-tailed lemur is the most common primate in zoos and just barely doesn't make the top 10. As for real monkeys, there's just too many to choose from. But the top 5 spots are the common marmoset, the cotton-topped tamarin, common squirrel monkey, tufted capuchin, and the Hamadryas baboon. All of them are very small, besides the baboon. Zoo Tycoon does have a baboon, but it's the olive baboon. It also has the mandrill. Overall, I think the monkey side of things is a bit lacking. What isn't lacking are the great apes, because we got all 3 of them, though the orangutan was a bonus download. That said, they picked the wrong gorilla, as the description implies it to be the eastern lowland gorilla, even though the western lowland gorilla is the only one kept in zoos. Even more confusingly, the files say it's the mountain gorilla. Moving on to elephants, we got the African in the base game and the Asian rare bonus downloads. Asian elephants actually rank higher on the list, being more common in Asian and European zoos, while the US have more African elephants, but it's nice to have both as an option. Then we get our sole Xenarthran with the giant anteater. I can see why armadillos and sloths didn't make the cut. Those sloths are super common, so I'm glad we at least got an anteater. Also, this game needs any South American animal it can get. And for marsupials, we got the red kangaroo and nothing else. I guess most other marsupials were considered too small, and if you're gonna have only one marsupial, it should be the kangaroo. But come on man, this is pretty barren. At least they got something though, unlike the following mammal clades, which go unrepresented. Rodents are definitely the big one among these, being the most numerous clade of mammals. The reason is of course, once again, their size. Except 2 of the most common rodents are actually also the biggest. This is where you can see Zoo Tycoon's age, because if this game released nowadays, there's no way it wouldn't have a capybara. Now that we're finally done with mammals, let's do birds. As I said, the lack of flying animals does a number on birds, but we still get 3 species: the ostrich, the greater flamingo, and the emperor penguin. The ostrich makes sense, biggest living bird, flightless, most famous rat-eyed, but while ostriches are super common, emu and rhea also rank high, and would have provided some love for continents that really need some. Greater flamingo is also a good pick. Super common common and iconic, plus it fills the role of a water bird. A lot of the top ranking animals are actually ducks and other waterfowl, as they are a common way to liven up ponds inside a zoo. Zoo Tycoon doesn't have any though for previously mentioned reasons, but the flamingo fills a similar role. The game also has a duck pond as a decorative building. As for the emperor penguin, it's not exactly a common sight in zoos. Usually you either get smaller penguins or king penguins, but I guess they wanted at least one animal from Antarctica. All in all, the selection of birds is pretty good if you're only looking to include the bare minimum. Except there is one important bird missing. Where's the peacock? Seriously, it's not only an iconic animal but also literally number one on the list. Why is it not here? Was it considered too small? It's the same size as a baboon, so I don't think that excuse is gonna fly here. This might in fact be the biggest omission in the game. Cooling our blood a bit, we move on to reptiles. Most reptiles are pretty small and can only be kept in terrariums, so like with birds, the selection is a bit limited. The only base game reptile was the saltwater crocodile, which, if you're only including one reptile, it better be a crocodile. While the saltwater crocodile is common, especially in Australian and Southeast Asian zoos, it's not actually the most common crocodile. That would be the alligator, because apparently any American zoo can just go to Florida and get some. Through bonus downloads, we got a second reptile in the Komodo dragon, which is probably the only lizard big enough to pass the size requirement. But I feel like we're lacking an essential reptile in the shape of a tortoise. Even if size is a problem, you could have added the Galapagos tortoise at least. Now that the land animals are done, let's start with the marine ones. This is a bit tricky because while Zootier listed does include aquariums as well, the big iconic marine animals aren't really kept much in captivity, so they don't make the list. This is obviously a good thing because keeping marine mammals in zoos is an even bigger can of worms than terrestrial ones. But hey, it's a game, so ethics be damned. Starting with whales, you obviously gotta have the bottlenose dolphin and the orca. Only the former actually makes the list. You also got the beluga, which is pretty recognizable. The harbor porpoise is interesting as it's not really common at all, but I guess it serves as like a mini orca. Then there's the narwhal, which cannot be kept in captivity. There were two zoos that tried, but it didn't work out. I assume it was included because of its unique look? At least these are somewhat realistic though, unlike the next three. Now sperm whales have in fact been kept in captivity, but they were all rescue animals that were either released back into the wild or died shortly after. As for the bowhead and humpback whales, let's just say Zootier listed doesn't even have a section for baleen whales. Then for sharks, we got 5 of them. All the greats are here: mako, tiger, hammerhead, whale and great white. Though none of them are too common in captivity. The most common one is actually the black tip reef shark. Also they picked the wrong hammerhead shark. Related to sharks, we got both the common sawfish and manta ray. Again, not very common, but very iconic and recognizable. The sawfish is actually the only freshwater animal in the game, which is a bit annoying because you probably won't even know that's the thing to watch out for. Beyond whales and sharks, we do get a couple other animals. Manatees are pretty iconic, and contrary to dolphins, they actually seem to do well in captivity. The green sea turtle is also iconic and actually makes the top 1000. Then we got a couple bony fish in the form of the Atlantic swordfish, the bluefin tuna, the green moray eel and the great barracuda, all of which were seemingly selected for being well known rather than their presence in real zoos. Broadly, I think the selection is fine, although I feel like maybe the ocean sunfish could have been a nice addition, as would maybe some freshwater fish. We then get 3 invertebrates: the giant squid, the Pacific octopus and the lion's mane jellyfish. Like I said, Zootier listed doesn't cover these, but from what I know, only one of them is actually kept in zoos. I appreciate their presence though. It's nice to have some invertebrate representation. With the marine animals done, let's cover the fake ones. Zoo Tycoon includes 5 fictional animals, which is fun. You got the unicorn, the yeti, Bigfoot, Nessie and the mermaid. The unicorn is a secret animal and honestly the perfect choice for one. You don't really get more iconic in terms of fake animals than the unicorn. The only competition would be a dragon, but that comes with some logistical issues. Plus they already had a dinosaur as the second secret animal. Yeti, Bigfoot and Nessie were bonus downloads and also great choices, being the most popular cryptids out there. The mermaid is also a good choice for a secret marine animal, though I question the ethics of keeping demi-humans in your zoo. It's also notable for being the only gender-locked species in the game. Now for the final part of the video, which is the extinct animals. This actually adds a a fourth metric to the evaluation, which is time period. How balanced are the dinosaur species across the 3 periods of the Mesozoic? Not too bad actually. Jurassic and Cretaceous are almost equal. Triassic gets the short end of the stick, but that's bound to happen. Honestly, it's almost surprising we got any Triassic dinosaurs. As for which dinosaurs we got, I obviously can't compare these with real zoos anymore, so instead we'll see which branches of the dinosaur family tree got represented. Most of the dinosaurs in Zoo Tycoon are the obvious choices, but there are some lesser known surprise picks in there which is appreciated even if they might not be the most accurate. Starting with the Ornithischia, we got 1 Ankylosaur, 2 Stegosaurs, 3 Ornithopods and 2 Ceratopsids. No Pachycephalosaurs though. Regarding the Ceratopsids, I wonder if Styracosaurus was included because Triceratops was already a secret animal in the base game, but they really wanted Ceratopsid in their dinosaur expansion. They really screwed themselves over with that one. I like the addition of Cantosaurus as a second Stegosaur. Gives us some African dinosaur rap. The choice of Ornithopods is also interesting. Iguanodon is pretty well known, being the second dinosaur to be discovered, and also featuring in a Disney movie. But I'm surprised they went for Lambeosaurus instead of the low-hanging fruit that is Parasaurolophus. And then there's Camptosaurus, presumably because they wanted at least one smaller herbivore. I like it though, giving the spotlight to lesser known dinosaurs is always nice. We also got 2 sauropods. I wonder if they wanted to go for Brontosaurus, but since this was during the time it was believed to be a synonym for Apatosaurus, they went with that instead. Plateosaurus is a nice choice as a second sauropod, giving us some Triassic rep and a more unique member of that clade, even if in this case they literally just reskinned the Apatosaurus and made it smaller. Then there's the theropods. We start with 2 early Triassic theropods in Coelophysis and Herrerasaurus. Well, technically Herrerasaurus is so early it's not even considered a theropod. Good choices though, nice to have a South American dinosaur. Unfortunately we don't get the most famous South American dinosaur, because while Disney got Iguanodon into the game, the same isn't true for Carnotaurus. Would have been nice to have an Abelisaur, but oh well. We do get a Spinosaur though, or rather the Spinosaur, who can't swim for some reason. Yes, I'm still upset about that. That's like his main feature besides the sail, and he even does so in Jurassic Park 3, which is I presume the reason he's included here. Anyway, we also get an Allosaur, who kinda serves as a mini T-Rex before you unlock the real thing, which yeah, obviously T-Rex is also here. Making a dinosaur zoo game without the T-Rex would be like making one without the Triceratops. Oh wait, speaking of dinosaurs you can't do without, we got Velociraptor as our sole Dromaeosaur, though unfortunately it's very much the Jurassic Park version. The real one probably wouldn't have passed the size limit. Lastly we got Gallimimus as our Ornithomimid and Caudipteryx as our token feathered dinosaur. I think this might be the actual smallest animal in the game, though it's pretty close. In summary, I think the selection is pretty good. A nice mix of the most iconic dinosaurs and some lesser known ones. There's some you could argue are missing, but to me the only notable absences are Pachycephalosaur, an Abelisaur, and maybe a Therizinosaur. While Dinosaur Dix was focused on dinosaurs, we did get some non-dinosaur animals too. First we got some contemporaries with Plesiosaurus and Dinosuchus. Plesiosaurus is a nice choice, giving us at least one marine reptile, though since fully aquatic animals wouldn't happen until Marine Mania, they had to make it behave like a seal. Dinosuchus is the secret animal of Dinosaur Dix, and I don't really know why. Obviously it's nice to have it in here, even if it's just a bigger saltwater crocodile, but as the secret animal it's a bit underwhelming. Personally I would have added one of the Crystal Park dinosaurs. That would be a fun bonus. No pterosaur sadly, because you know, flying reptiles and all. Beyond the Mesozoic we have 4 Pleistocene animals, plus 2 more that came later via bonus downloads. You obviously get the Ice Age trinity of woolly mammoth, woolly rhino and saber-tooth cat, then Megatherium and Macrauchenia for some of the funky South American megafauna, and then there's the curious case of Maiolania. Simply referred to as the giant tortoise, Maiolania is perhaps the biggest mystery in all of Zoo Tycoon. Like, why this? I know I said we were missing a tortoise, but this isn't what I meant. Also, why does it live in the tundra? They really just made every Pleistocene animal a tundra animal because it's the Ice Age. This thing lived nowhere near the tundra. Maybe they wanted a quote-unquote dinosaur for every biome, except they didn't include one for desert, so that can't be it. Anyway, that aside, the selection of non-dinosaur animals is pretty decent. If I'd have to choose any that could have also been included, I'd say Dimetrodon to get some Paleozoic web, plus it's basically an honorary dinosaur, and maybe the dodo bird. But considering this was specifically meant to be a dinosaur expansion, I'm not gonna fault them for focusing on mostly dinosaurs. If this was a general extinct animals expansion though, then things would be different. Dang, can't believe we finally threw it all. In conclusion, I'd say Zoo Tycoon's animal roster is pretty good. There are some very notable omissions and the continental distribution is a bit shit. But for the first real zoo game, I don't mind too much. I feel like I should have a more elaborate conclusion here, but I don't know what else to add. Considering I'm calling this video Rate the Zoo roster, you'd expect me to like give this a score or something, but I don't really know how to quantify that. If you want to check the data for yourself, I'll put a link to Zootierliste in the description. Keep in mind that it's a German site, and while you can set it to English, the names on the holding charts list don't get translated for some reason. Once again, this video is part of ZooTyCon 2025. Be sure to check out everyone else making videos and streams as part of this event. And hey, maybe next year I'll do a follow-up video on Zoo Tycoon too. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Boy, that was a long video. I really thought this would be like a 10 or 15 minute thing, but look where we ended up instead. Anyway, I've been wanting to make this video for a long time now, so I'm glad I finally did. Hopefully the increased length didn't lead to any mistakes sneaking in, but if I did mess up anywhere, feel free to correct me in the comments. Anyway, like and subscribe, I guess.